To accurately evaluate the events of April 20, 2022 involving Steven Todd Faircloth, we will conduct a litigation-grade, frame-by-frame forensic analysis of the available body-worn camera footage. Our specific analytical focus is on the phase of the arrest immediately following the application of handcuffs. We need to measure the degree of physical force applied by the primary officer after mechanical control of the subject is established. To construct a complete picture, our methodology synchronizes Sergeant Inzar's charge-mounted camera with a lateral perspective provided by Officer Taylor. This multi-angle approach allows us to map precise biomechanical manipulations. The legal threshold guiding this review is the Fourth Amendment's objective reasonableness standard. When evaluating a post-arrest escort, any application of force must be objectively reasonable based on the threat or resistance presented by the subject. A standard minimal force arrestee escort typically involves an officer gripping the subject's arm or elbow to guide their direction of travel. The subject remains structurally upright, and no leverage is applied to the joints. This contrasts sharply with a pain compliance hold, such as a rear wrist lock. In a compliance hold, an officer deliberately hyperextends joints to inflict localized pain, forcing the subject to move or submit to avoid further injury. If an officer applies vertical torque to a handcuffed subject who is already contained, it stops being an ordinary escort. The physical interaction escalates into active joint manipulation. The ultimate output of this investigation will be an officer credibility matrix. We will cross-reference the objective visual and audio facts against the types of defensive claims typically found in written police reports. Evaluating a use of force incident requires stripping away emotional language and assumptions. We rely exclusively on the biomechanical facts and the chronological data captured by the hardware. Setting the timeline to 1 minute and 27 seconds, we observe the initial physical contact between Sergeant Inzar and Steven Faircloth. Look closely at Faircloth's baseline physical state prior to the cuffs being applied. His arms are relaxed and resting at his sides. When Sergeant Inzar reaches for Faircloth's left arm, Faircloth is immediately compliant. He brings both hands behind his back without hesitation. There is a total absence of active resistance. His shoulders are dropped, his torso is still, and there is no visible stiffening. Switching to Sergeant Inzar's perspective, we can verify his hands successfully closing and locking the metal cuffs around Faircloth's wrists. At precisely 1 minute and 42 seconds into the recording, total mechanical restraint is achieved. During this initial cuffing phase, Faircloth remains standing completely upright. His physical posture is structurally stable and relaxed. 1 second later, at 1:43, we capture the first audio evidence of physical distress. Faircloth says, "Hey, please ma'am, that hurts." At 1:44, Sergeant Inzar responds immediately to the complaint, stating, "It ain't supposed to feel good." Complete physical control was established at 1:42 without a single incident of resistance. Therefore, any physical escalation recorded after this timestamp occurs against a fully compliant baseline. This table breaks down specific chain manipulations post-control. Advancing to 1:45, Sergeant Inzar places a firm grip on the center cuff chain, applying upward vertical force to create leverage against the locked wrist joints. The physiological response is immediate. Faircloth involuntarily buckles, forced into a sharp forward lean with his head dropped below his shoulders. This is standard postural distortion. The human body automatically bends forward at the waist to relieve extreme structural tension when the wrists are pushed high up the back and the shoulder joints are hyperextended. As the walk begins, Faircloth's explicit complaints escalate. Over the next minute, he repeatedly cries out, saying, "Ow, fuck, man, that hurts. Stop, man, please," and specifically tells the officer, "Please stop the wrist thing." Throughout this escort, Sergeant Inzar continuously dismisses the complaints. This dialogue proves the officer was subjectively aware of the pain he inflicted in real time. When we analyze the lateral perspective from Officer Taylor's camera, we can measure the severity of the hold. Faircloth's arms are being pulled significantly above his waistline, toward his mid-upper back. The video captures Sergeant Inzar using a pumping motion, repeatedly lifting and lowering the cuff chain to maintain continuous torque on the joints. Because of this severe forward lean, Faircloth is unable to maintain a normal walking stride. His feet are forced to shuffle across the pavement just to keep his balance. Despite Faircloth explicitly identifying his wrists as the source of the pain, no officer on scene checks the fit of the cuffs or engages the double locking mechanism to prevent them from tightening further. These mechanical actions demonstrate an intentional choice. The officer transitioned from a standard escort to a continuous pain compliance technique on a subject demonstrating zero resistance. We can now take the raw visual and audio data collected and convert it into a litigation-ready legal framework. This document is the final officer credibility and report-impeachment matrix. It preemptively tests hypothetical written reports against the hard evidence. Our first legal inference stems from the timeline at 1 minute and 35 seconds, establishing Faircloth's passive compliance. This baseline visual definitively refutes any subsequent written claims attempting to state that the subject resisted, pulled away, or stiffened his arms to avoid the handcuffs. The second legal inference is anchored to the exact audio recorded at 1:44. By stating it ain't supposed to feel good, the officer's own words refute any defense claiming he was unaware of pain or that the applied force was accidental. The third inference targets the continuous upward leverage applied from 1:45 until the end of the walk at 3:06. The lateral BWC footage mathematically refutes any claim that this was a standard escort walk or that minimal force was used to guide the arrestee. This raises a critical discovery question for the department. What precise training protocol dictates the application of upward vertical leverage on the handcuff chain of a compliant, walking subject? The final physical toll of this hyperextended manipulation is visible at the very end of the recording. At the patrol car door, Faircloth's arms are so immobilized that he is physically unable to angle himself safely into the seat. By cross-referencing multi-angle video with synchronized audio, we eliminate subjective narratives. What remains is an irrefutable timeline of objective biomechanical facts.